I wonder what you're hoping for this Christmas. We and our families and friends may have made plans in the past that in the present situation we now find ourselves in are both filled with risks and impossible to follow through on. No large gatherings or global travel to spend time with loved ones. We might have been looking forward to giving or receiving an expensive gift or a special treat, but now we find that finances are tight and it's just not possible or sensible to make or expect that gift. Do all these changes mean that we've lost all hope in finding joy in our journey towards and celebration of Christmas? Perhaps it feels like we never quite manage the Christmas we hope for, and that this year it's just worse than ever. Whatever our circumstances, let's see if we can focus for a few minutes on the real hope that lies at the heart of our Christian faith. The Christian idea of hope is based on something that is realistic and tangible, rather than on dreams that can't be fulfilled. In the teaching of Jesus from Mark's Gospel this morning, he doesn't use the word hope, but he gives us an image of hope, that of the new leaves breaking through on a fig tree. In the arid deserts of the Holy Land, the fig tree is quite unusual for being deciduous and having large, quite leathery leaves. They appear in late spring and herald harvest time, which needs to happen before the land becomes too parched and dry. The leaves would also herald the hope of sweet, nutritious fig fruits later in the year. The new leaves of the fig that people would notice and comment on each year were a sign of hope that God's land would provide for his people. God's people were also hoping for a Messiah, someone whom they had been promised would lead them into a new relationship with God and the world. Many people in his own time hadn't seen or understood that Jesus was the Messiah. So when disaster struck their community and their traditional ways of worship, which it would a few years later, many of them would really struggle to find any hope in the situation. I grew up knowing an elderly lady who had the most amazing fig tree in her Hampshire garden, but sadly I don't have one to hand today. But a bit like Jesus, I can use what I have nearby to try and put the concept of hope into context for us today. I'm using this rather large pot plant that I know as a friendship tree, but you might know it as a jade plant or a money tree. I decorate mine, as you can see, with lights at Christmas because it's in our front window. Unlike the fig tree or the other trees we've seen change colour this autumn, this one doesn't drop its leaves. However, it does quite frequently drop a whole branch or twig of leaves. It's this plant's way of propagating itself, of growing new baby plants just like itself. You can see here that a bit has broken off, and indeed where it's happened before, new branches are growing, which, like these ones, have little baby roots ready to hit the ground and start a new plant. Designed to grow in dry countries, it's evolved in a way that can make the best possible use of limited water supplies by having its roots all ready to go and big fat leaves to store water in. however dry and battered it gets, it can continue growing, and indeed new plants can flourish as a result. That is what hope is. Something real that's able to grow whatever the conditions it's living in. Something visible and tangible that offers a sign of new life, which we can trust will always be there. At the moment, we probably want to place our hope in vaccines and the scientists creating them that will stop people becoming ill. In the long run, they'll mean we can hug our friends and relations again. This is a real hope in something that's tangible and realistic. But God has provided us with a hope that is even greater and reaches beyond the current pandemic. Jesus, the Messiah. As Christians, we believe that Jesus is the Son of God. God come down to earth in human form to grow God's presence among us. He isn't just a character in the second part of a big story book that we know as the Bible, but a real historic figure who did the things we read in the Gospels, and who other people have written about too, then and ever since. The roots of new life that he put out to grow as soon as they fall into our hearts are his words and teachings that have never died or stopped being relevant, despite all the things that have been said and done against Jesus and his followers in the years since he lived on earth. However tough and drought-stricken life is, however we might struggle with shattered dreams of things we'd misplaced our hope in, Jesus and what he taught continues to be the source of our hope, something we can see and experience even in the most difficult of times. We might feel like we've been broken away from the hope that nourishes us by being unable to do the normal things that we expect at Christmas, including packing our churches full to sing of the light and life brought by the truth of the birth of Jesus. But as we approach the celebration of his birth in this different but special and simple Christmas, let us plant ourselves afresh in the words of Jesus, that as our gospel has it today, will not pass away. And let us be strengthened to hope not just in that story, but in all that Jesus does for us, dying and rising to new life, so that we can have the hope that comes through the relationship with God that he promises. As we find new ways of celebrating and growing the hope of Jesus this Christmas, let's make it tangible and realistic, not just for ourselves, but for those we encounter in person, in the streets, by phone, on a video call. What can we tell them of how God has nourished us with his presence, answered prayer, or pointed out to us a fresh direction for our lives, in the past or in the current situation? Alongside the story of Jesus' birth, those are gifts of hope that will make Jesus as tangible and real for others as he is for us.